Hi everyone, it's Kathleen here. I'm having to record my narration because the house was too noisy the other day when I made this project. Um, so just bear with me a wee bit. Okay, so the size of the paper that I'm using is 7 by 7 7/8, and with the short side at the top, score at 7/8. Now I'm using the right hand side of my trimmer here for the measurements. It's easier if it's less than an inch. It's easier to use that side. The paper stays straighter, it's more stable. So I've turned it round and I'm going to score at 6 1/8. If you were using a scoreboard, you wouldn't need to turn the paper round like I've done. And then turn so the long side's at the top, and again I'm using the right hand side of the trimmer, the ruler, and scoring at 7/8 of an inch, and then turn it round so that it's the right way up again and score at 3.5. Again, if you've got a scoreboard, you don't need to turn your paper like that. It's only because I'm using my trimmer as a scoring tool. And then 4 3/8. And finally 7. And that's all the scoring for the box part. You can vaguely see the score lines there. Okay, so with the long sides at the top and bottom, just snip up each score line, the small boxes that are formed. Trim up to the first score line, and then taper in on both sides of these little squares. I will go back and do the other edge of that one. Tapering just helps in the box construction. If your score lines are out even ever so slightly, you can sometimes get a trailing edge, which makes it harder to match up all the lines. Okay, so I've just turned the paper round and do the same, exactly the same on the opposite side. So both of my children and my hubby are in today, and they're out in the garden and they're making a right racket. So I did record the video as I always do, but the noise in the background was unbelievable. Leaf blowers, hammers, all sorts. I'm just tapering that last edge there. Okay. So you can see there that I've got my stamps out, and that's the Lotus Blossom stamp set, which is part of the Celebration product range. And I'm using Wisteria Wonder ink to stamp. I've got some scratch paper there. I actually stamp in a different order to the suggested order. I find that if I use the full image, which is supposed to be the first stamp, I use that last, but what I do is I ink it up and stamp off twice, and then stamp it onto my project. I get the best results that way. And before I started doing it like this, my stamps were just coming out a big muddy mess. But also you'll notice that I've not used my piercing mat, and I do realise that and start using it, but it does make a huge difference to photopolymer stamps using the piercing mat. It acts as a replacement to the foam on a clear mount stamp, and you get a much better impression. Just getting a bit of scrap paper here to put under the bottom edge so that I can stamp off the edge of the card. I think all the noise was putting me off. I kind of fumbled a little bit in a couple of places. At one point my hubby actually rapped on the window to get my attention. He didn't realise I was recording at the time. And there you can see I've remembered the piercing mat. So on to stamp number 2 now, which is the second stamp, no matter what way you go. You either go 1, 2, 3 or 3, 2, 1. So inking that up, stamp off once and then onto the project. And even though the stamps get quite discoloured like that, they are still quite easy to see through. Even with a very light colour like Pink Pirouette, I was still able to line them up quite easily. And I love the stamp set, it's absolutely fantastic. Just get my scrap paper back in. And then on to the last image, which is stamp 1. I ink that up and then stamp it straight onto the project. So this is the darkest image. I tried looking for some music to play over the video rather than recording a narration, but the music, oh my goodness, I gave up. Dearie dear, some awful stuff. I suppose that's just my opinion, but oh my goodness. I'd rather have had the banging and thumping and leaf blowing. And then the final image. So that's obviously the top of the box. Now that I've stamped my images on that part. Yep, quick tidy up. And just gently start to fold the score lines. Just be careful of the ink, if it may still be slightly wet. You don't want to smudge it. And then just continuing to fold all the tabs in. And then lightly burnish. Now I like to round the back corners of the box lid. So just make sure you tuck in all those tabs so that you don't cut one off by mistake, and I'm just using my envelope punch board to do that. Goodness, I forgot the name there for a minute. The envelope punch board. I tried stamping the front corner too, but there was no point. That's adhered down, so it actually looked like I'd made a mistake when I'd rounded the front corners as well. And fast fuse, I don't seem to have any problem with it. I find that if you flick one way and then flick the next, then the adhesive tape stays on the little roller. I did get caught up at one point because it rolled onto the mat. There you go. I rolled it too far and it rolled onto the mat. It is very, very sticky. But anything not to cut tape is a winner in my book. And then I'm just starting to make up the box base. So just going round carefully, lining up the edges, tucking the tabs in and adhering them. This is when, if you don't taper the ends, you can sometimes get a little edge popping up. So you could trim them afterwards, but it's much easier just to taper that tiny little bit beforehand. And then just the 2 tabs for the lid. Okay. Now I use a hole punch to punch a thumb hole. The gift that goes in this box is quite snug, so I put one on the bottom as well. I am also an Avon rep, to just to family and friends, nothing huge, but I've been doing that for a few years now. So this little box was made specifically for one of the Avon products, and I know that a lot of people have access to Avon, so these measurements, if you ever buy that particular item, these measurements will make a box that fits perfectly. And I'm going to do a belly band closure for this one, a removable one, so that you can just slide it on and off, as opposed to using ribbon or anything like that. And I'm just wrapping it round. It's easier to do this rather than measure and score. You don't want to make it too tight because you want to be able to slide it off, but you don't want it loose that it's going to slide off by itself. So I'm just going around marking those lines gently and then going over them to burnish them fully, making sure everything's straight. If you had very, very thick card, you'd maybe have to measure it and score it on a scoreboard or the trimmer. But for this card, it's fine. And I use the Wisteria Wonder card and do it the same way, and it was fine with that. It didn't have any nasty crease marks on it. And then just fast fuse again, making sure that that join is at the back, or underneath in this case. You could probably do a decorative edge if you had an edge punch or anything like that. You could probably add ribbon round it as well on top of the Wisteria Wonder. But I'd left this until quite late, so didn't have a lot of time, and then I needed to get this video done. So I've only actually made the one box. I made a prototype for the measurements, etc. But then this is, I normally make two versions like a lot of people do. But I didn't get a chance to do that for this. So that's the Wisteria Wonder piece. I never gave you the measurements. Oh, they were on the screen, it's okay. So the white piece was 1.5 by 8.25, and the Wisteria Wonder was 1 by 8.25. So again, wrapping it round and making sure it's not too tight but not too loose that it's going to fall off. And I'm going to use the Label Love punch set, stamp set and matching punch, and I'm going to use the To and From stamp. Some Whisper White cardstock and back with the Wisteria Wonder ink. And you see me stamping it on a scrap piece here just to see how it stamps, and it was fine. That stamped image was fine, but then when I stamped it on the card I pressed it too hard in the middle, and some ink had caught in the middle of the stamp. You see that little blob there. So when you're using this particular stamp, or any stamp that has mainly an edge to it, don't press it too much in the middle. That's much better. And actually the Stampin' Up stamps don't take that much pressure. They're a really, really good quality stamp. I wasn't really a stamper before Stampin' Up, but they're so nice to use that I'm transformed. My crafting's transformed. I'm sure there's many people that will say the same. And of course the punch just makes things so easy. Leaves a small border around the edge of that stamped image. And teeny tiny sentiments. Looking for the Happy Mother's Day stamp. I forgot to order Mother's Day things. Being a mum myself, I found it quite funny. I forgot all about Mother's Day. So this is the only Mother's Day stamp I have, and it's been well used. But those teeny tiny sentiments cover a whole array of different things, and I'm so glad that I got them. And the word window punch is fantastic. I'm just lining it up there, sorry I'm slightly out of shot, but I'm just lining the sentiment up in the word window, and you'll see that there. I fumble a little bit with the Wisteria Wonder label punch out, trying to figure out where to put my adhesive, but I do figure it out in the end. I was conscious I didn't want any adhesive showing, and when I picked up the white piece to apply adhesive, I realised that I didn't actually know where I needed the adhesive, and it in fact did have to go on the purple piece. Watch me try and figure. There we go. So I put it back together and put the snail right down over the the cut line, so there was a little bit of adhesive on each edge, and just tucked one under the bottom and one under the top to give a nice layered effect. It's quite funny how some things can really throw you when you're filming a video, um, because you suddenly become aware of not wanting to get your head in, or time passing by, how long the video is going to be, etc, etc. I had trouble deciding where to place this little sentiment as well, but did decide to sponge the edges because I wanted it to pop a wee bit more. But ultimately, the end, I put a rhinestone to the left of the word window, and actually ended up adhering it to the top left corner. And the box was very much appreciated. That's one of the things my mum said when she got it. She commented on the box, how beautiful it was. So thanks for watching.